All right, well, Donald Trump is not making any mistakes when it comes to New Hampshire, criticized for not spending enough time and not enough personal, intimate one-on-ones in that state. He is doing just those sort of smaller venues in New Hampshire. Kelly McEnany and Ashley Pratt on whether that strategy works. Ashley, you have your doubts. Why?
I do, because I am a New Hampshire native myself, and I am back here on the ground covering this election. And what I've noticed from him is that he's doing these huge rallies, which is exactly what he did in Iowa. And in order to win in New Hampshire, you really need to be having a strong ground game when it comes to having that one-on-one, personal contact with voters. Today, for example, Marco Rubio shook every hand of every attendee at an event here in Manchester. And that's the type of stuff that wins voters over if they're undecided. So I really think that by Trump adding some more events, he realizes the mistake that he may have made in Iowa by not doing more of those retail politics types of events. And he actually added, a meeting with local small business owners. He does have a town hall, I believe it was this morning in Exeter. So he is doing more of these one-on-one type things. So it'll be interesting to see if that actually plays out in more votes on primary day.
Well, I don't know, Kelly. I mean, he's done very large venues where thousands show up, so he's good at that. I just think he's mixing it up. It's not as if he's dispensing with the larger venues. He's mixing it up. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, he's just bolstering his lead in New Hampshire. Look, Donald Trump has a commanding lead in New Hampshire. He's ahead by 20 points. And Ashley makes a good point that the ground game's important, undeniably. There's a chance that Donald Trump could have pulled out a win in Iowa had he had as robust of a ground game as Ted Cruz. But here's the thing worth looking at, Neil. Donald Trump, despite not having probably half the ground operation Ted Cruz had, still came in second place in a state that he was never amenable to.
And by the way, he argues it would have been even better than that had Cruz not done some of these things. I don't think he's going to succeed in having the election redone, or that there might be much to his charge. But I guess, actually, what he's doing is planting enough seeds of doubt about Cruz to make him less of a factor in New Hampshire, right?
Right, and we'll see if that's an effective strategy. And one thing, for Cruz that was huge in Iowa was that base of evangelical supporters, which is something you really don't have here in New Hampshire. You do have a lot of fiscal conservatives, a lot of moderates, and you have a lot of faith-based voters, but they don't call themselves evangelical. So I do think Ted Cruz will find it difficult to earn that support here, one, and two, to combat these attacks by Donald Trump that are true about him, accusing Carson of dropping out of the race and then having there be issues about voter fraud and all of this stuff that's being brought up. But Trump on his own really does, again, need to put more emphasis on that ground game. And yesterday I stopped by his campaign headquarters, and they had tons of volunteers in there making phone calls. So they are doing the voter contact operations. I just think the candidate himself does need to do more small-time events.
Sure, but
he's leading in the polls, so that doesn't mean anything. But go ahead, Kelly.
He's leading in the polls by 20 points. I think there's no way that he loses New Hampshire. I think because look, this is a state that is very likely for Donald Trump to win. It's his voters. This is his state. Independents, he does exceedingly well with. Democratic-leaning voters, he does exceedingly well with. And we're in a state.
That is a myth.
We're in a state. No, it's not a myth, Ashley. And here's the thing: we're in a state, New Hampshire.
Yeah, I live in New Hampshire. I have lived in New Hampshire for 24 years.
Yeah, but that's anecdotal evidence. He has a commanding lead in the polls.
Yes, but most will go in on the day of the primary and vote Democrat or Republican.
I wish we had more time. Ted Cruz is responding to Trump and some of the criticism. Let's listen in on this for a second.
It's not a sign. It is a sign. There's such overwhelming force behind the campaign that it's pushing the sign over. This is the rising grassroots on display before you. There have been several media reports on the upcoming debate that the criteria set up for the debate would exclude Carly Fiorina. I think that's a mistake. And I want to call on ABC News and on the RNC to include...
All right, that is the risk with some of these shots and all, but obviously he's talking about this upcoming debate that will exclude Carly Fiorina. That's raised some hackles among those who say the last thing you want to do is ostracize the lone female candidate.